The animosity between first-century Jews and Samaritans was deep-rooted, mutual, and multifaceted, stemming from centuries of historical events, ethnic intermingling, religious divergences, and political conflicts. While Jewish sources often portrayed Samaritans as impure heretics or foreigners, Samaritan perspectives emphasized their own purity as the true guardians of ancient Israelite faith, viewing Jews as the one who had deviated. Next, I'll outline the key reasons drawing from historical and biblical accounts. The divide began with the split of the ancient kingdom of Israel after Solomon's death around 975 BC, creating the northern kingdom of Israel with its capital at Samaria, and the southern kingdom of Judah, centered on Jerusalem. Tensions simmered due to political rivalries and tribal differences, but escalated dramatically with the Assyrian conquest of the northern kingdom in 722 BC. The Assyrians deported much of the Israelite population, those lost 10 tribes, and they resettled the areas that they used to live in with colonists from regions like Babylon, Kata, and Hamath. The remaining Israelites, the ones who were still living there, intermingled with these foreigners, forming what became the Samaritan people, a mixed ethnic group in Jewish eyes. This intermarriage was seen by Jews as a dilution of pure Israelite bloodlines, leading to accusations of impurity and idolatry, as the newcomers brought their own gods and they blended them with Yahweh worship, as described in 2 Kings 17. In contrast, Samaritans claimed descent primarily from the tribes of Ephraim and Manasseh. These were sons of Joseph, and they insisted that they were the ethnic remnant of Israel who had not been fully exiled, as some of them were. They rejected the Jewish narrative of their foreign origins as polemic slander, and they argued that any mixing was minimal and that they preserved the original Israelite identity. The southern kingdom of Judah fell to the Babylonians around 586 BC, leading to the exile of many Jews. When a remnant returned around 538 BC under Persian rule led by figures like Zerubbabel, Ezra, and Nehemiah, they focused on rebuilding the Jerusalem temple and purifying their community. Samaritans offered to assist, but their help was rejected outright, as Jews viewed them as ethnically and religiously compromised outsiders. See Ezra 4, verses 1 through 5. This snub fueled resentment. Samaritans retaliated by lobbying Persian authorities to stop Jewish reconstruction efforts, delaying the temple's completion. From the Samaritans' viewpoint, the returning Jews were the impure ones, having intermingled during their Babylonian exile and introducing altered scriptures and altered Jewish practices. They saw the Jews' insistence on Jerusalem as the capital as a deviation from true Israelite tradition. A core source of hatred was religious. Samaritans adhered to a form of Judaism based solely on the Pentateuch, those first 5 books of the Bible, using their own Aramaic version of the Bible that differed slightly from the Hebrew one that the Jews were using. They rejected all the rest of the Jewish scriptures. They rejected all the prophets. They rejected all of the writings and accused the Jews, particularly Ezra, of falsifying the Torah. Crucially, Samaritans believed Mount Gerizim near Shechem was God's chosen holy site for worship, as per their reading of Deuteronomy, not Jerusalem. They built a temple there at Mount Gerizim around 400 to 322 BC, which the Jews saw as a heretical rival to their own temple. Samaritans, however, trace the schism to earlier biblical times, blaming a priest named Eli for establishing a rival site at Shiloh, later named Jerusalem, instead of Gerizim, which they claimed was the original and legitimate sanctuary. So they're claiming the original temple site should have been Mount Gerizim and not Shiloh, not Jerusalem. They viewed their faith as unaltered Mosaic Yahwehism, with the Jews as the schismatic ones who had corrupted it. Over the centuries, hostilities intensified through direct confrontations. During the Hellenistic period under Antiochus IV Epiphanes in the 2nd century BC, Samaritans allegedly sided with the Greek rulers, even rededicating their Gerizim temple to Zeus to avoid Greek persecution, actions that the Jews saw as total betrayal. In retaliation, the Jewish Hasmonean leader John Hyrcanus destroyed the Gerizim temple around 128 to 110 BC, and he ravaged Samaritan territory, a devastating blow that cemented their enmity against the Jews. By the 1st century under Romans, that hatred was ingrained. It was ingrained so much that the Jews typically avoided Samaritan territory altogether. They refused social interactions with Samaritans, and they considered Samaritan food and water as ritually unclean, as noted in John 4:9. A notorious incident happened around the time of Jesus' birth. It involved the Samaritans scattering human bones in the Jerusalem temple during Passover, which profaned the temple and incited outrage. Samaritan revolts like the one in Gerizim in 67 AD during the First Jewish-Roman War were brutally suppressed, highlighting ongoing tensions. In Samaritan eyes, these acts, like the temple's destruction, confirmed Jewish aggression, while they positioned themselves as victims, maintaining the pure faith against Jewish innovations. Overall, by the 1st centuries, Jews generally regarded Samaritans as worse than Gentiles, half-breeds who corrupted the true religion, while Samaritans saw Jews as arrogant usurpers of Israelite heritage. This mutual contempt was not absolute. Some interactions occurred, but it was pervasive, as evidenced in the New Testament stories like the Good Samaritan parable, which use the divide to illustrate radical compassion. The conflict was a gradual process over centuries, not a single event, as modern scholars note that both sides' narratives were shaped by bias.